What's good, everybody? This is Kenneth Berry here. Another episode of Touchdowns and Tangents. Pete couldn't make it tonight, but he'll hopefully be calling in. Skype situation is being weird. What the hell? Hold on one second. That's weird. Huh. Huh. Well, Skype's being weird as fuck right now. That makes no sense whatsoever. All right, but anyway, in the short term, touchdowns and tangents. Uh, so much happened this week. Gonna get to it, but I just want to say shout out to Good News Radio, Good News Sports, X Squad affiliates, everybody out there who follows the pod, likes our IG stuff, engages with us on Twitter. We're gonna be covering the NFLPA Bowl and the Senior Bowl, and the Shrine Game. These next upcoming weeks, we'll see how that goes. Most importantly, though, it's it's an interesting week with football. Like, I don't know, it was either the story was the refs just being utter trash. It's a combination of the refs being trash and teams just playing really dumb. But before I get to that, I gotta fix the situation. So go ahead and just listen to some theme music one more time. All right, we're gonna do that. Ladies and gentlemen, have some technical difficulties. It's weird because this never usually happens, but hey, this is the first time for everything. Yeah, Skype decided to be stupid today. Anyway, well, I'll just get to the long and the short of it. So, obviously, the biggest controversy. Ironically, it was the Raiders Bengals controversy, even though that didn't really, they didn't really lose the game behind that. I mean, yeah, Joe Burrow threw it right before he went out of bounds. The referee blew it dead way too early. Tyler Boyd catches it in the back of the end zone, but clearly you could tell that that play was blown dead before the ball even got in the end zone. So, Bengals go up by a touchdown. There was a couple other calls in that game that went the Raiders' way, so necessarily I can't be too mad. Raiders just honestly weren't good enough to win that game. Like I said, they weren't. They really didn't have an answer for Jamar Chase. He went off for 100 yards, over 100 yards, easy by himself. Um, Bengals are on another level with that offense. Now that defense could use some work. Trey Hendrickson, they're damn near all pro pass rusher. He's solid. But yeah, kind of the biggest issue really is the fact that if you really look at what um what the refs how badly they messed up this week, I mean, it really just comes down to head coaches making stupid ass play calls. Uh when it came down to the Cowboys game, Dak Prescott honestly could have slid. He could have not ran those extra 5 yards. He could have ran till he got the first down, got in the middle of the field, took a knee or slid, and then handed the ball to the ref. I mean, the ref had to pretty much run between him and the center to place the ball, and by the time that happened, the clock ran out. That's clock management. That's the Cowboys' fault. They lost, and that's on them. Now, the Niners almost choked that game away because Jimmy Garoppolo didn't wait till all pro left tackle Trent Williams got set, and that's why they lost yardage, even though they got the first down. Now, just when it comes down to the Chiefs, Steelers, the Patriots, Bills, that was just a good old fashioned curb stomping. So, I mean, there's really not much you can do. So, when it comes down to it, who do you blame? The refs, or do you blame yourself for playing like shit in a crucial moment? Think you got to blame yourself for playing like shit in a crucial moment. And honestly, the Niners are the most dangerous team in the playoffs because their defense is getting healthier, and nobody can really stop Debo Samuels. That offense is good enough to where you can stop one person, but they're still going to come after you. So when it comes down to officiating, hopefully it's not a repeat this week. When it comes down to, I would say, when it comes down to the Patriots, I mean, obviously they killed the Eagles, but not the Patriots. Patriots got killed. The Buccaneers. It's weird. Like, I'm just always going to see Tom Brady as a Patriot. Like, the Bucks being like just perpetually good is just kind of annoying. But I know they're going to be trash once he retires. So that kind of gives me some solace. But when it strictly just comes down to straight up X's and O's, the Buccaneers somehow have the easiest road to the championship when you look at who's left, who they're going to play. Now, the Rams have the talent, but the problem is it's Matthew Stafford. It always comes down to Matthew Stafford. Odell can save you. Cooper Cup can always make it competitive. The Rams have enough. Cam Akers somehow coming back on. Whew, sorry. It's cold in here. But when it comes down to the Cam Akers recovering from that Achilles injury, that's personally shocking to me that he's even able to walk and run full speed. But the fact that he can sit up here and be an impactful part of that offense, the defense is what it's going to be. The Rams should be in the NFC title game, but when it comes down to it, who knows? Because the Niners, the Rams definitely don't want to see the Niners again. They don't. They don't want that problem. They cannot beat the Niners. They can't beat them on a train, a plane, anywhere, honestly. And if you're looking at it, If you're being honest about it, you got to sit up here and acknowledge the fact that, you know, the NFC is arguably way better. They're just better. There's really not much you can do in that regard. Um, damn. Okay, there. Skype still ain't working. All right, whatever. So when it comes down to it, in that regard, um, I still say Packers because they're getting everybody back. I still say Packers make it to the Super Bowl. Tampa Bay, you just have to respect them, so they have to be there. But a good pass rush always has Brady's number. Now, this Bills team pretty much took out like 40 years of frustration against the Patriots. And like they just took out years of like Tom Brady poundage on the New England Patriots. They didn't stand a chance. You score on every possession. Josh Allen had 5 touchdowns to 4 incompletions. They're even running the ball dominant. Like, what are you gonna do? It's just not your night. And the Patriots, I think, still have a pretty decent first round pick after all that. So you factor in, you know, pretty much what's gonna happen with the Chiefs. I mean, the Steelers weren't really a match at all. It's really down to the same 4 teams. I think Tennessee is a wild card with Derrick Henry, but ultimately, if Derrick Henry can, I mean, he has a steel foot in his plate, a steel plate in his foot. Foot injuries suck to come back from. So you got to ask yourself, do you honestly believe they're going to come back? I personally, I don't know how. I really don't know how they're going to do it. Because from my viewpoint, if I'm if I'm Tennessee, I don't necessarily want to put the ball in Tannehill's hands like that to pass it. I think they got to get him a couple design runs. You know, he is fast. He is an athlete. He can run with the ball. He just doesn't. They managed with Deontay Foreman to have a running game, but I still think sorry. I still think when it comes down to it, I gotta go Chiefs. Just for the sheer fact that no one's beating them in the playoffs. Buffalo really, that's the only thing standing in their way is the Chiefs. And they don't have Tre'Davious White. I know they're playing at a high level, but that can change. Um, I just don't see it. I think Josh Allen will have a superhuman level performance. I don't see other offenses that much better. I mean, Dawson Knox, yes, is really good, but the Chiefs defense has answers for athletic tight ends. So, I mean, it comes down to realistically who's going to run the ball better. Because if you're going to say, hey, we're the Kansas City Chiefs, fine, you take away our pass game. What we're just going to do is find ways to run the ball, do some fly sweeps. You're going to have to find a way to beat us. Plain and simple. I don't know if I just don't believe Buffalo's run game like that. I mean, if it was anybody else, I would pick Buffalo to just ride it out to the title game. But got to beat the Chiefs, and Kelsey's proven he's unstoppable. Tyreek Hill is sometimey, but even then, even when he's sometimey, he's still the best deep threat in the league. And honestly, I think he'd be a better running back than Debo Samuels. Because, I mean, he already proved he could take to the house. But the dude is built like a running back. It makes no sense. So, as far as AFC title pictures, yeah, I think AFC title game, Chiefs make it. I don't have faith in Tennessee like that. Um, I think somehow it's Rams Packers. Oh, it's like if Stafford like totally shits the bed, but like all those injuries are going to catch up to Tampa Bay on offense, and I think it's now would be that time. So, with all that standing, I just think it's really funny when you talk about you sit up here and you talk about okay, for what all these teams need to do to win, you know, you go okay. You have the Chiefs who you can't really out game plan them. It really comes down to who has a better franchise QB. And I gotta be honest, even though I just said all that shit about the Chiefs being unstoppable, the Bengals are the one team that has seen through the Chiefs and they've beaten them. So if I had to go against the grain and pick one team that would somehow make it to the Super Bowl out of the AFC, out of the car crash that is this playoffs, I would pick the Bengals. Me personally. But just from what I see and what's out there, I can't sit up here and say with all good faith and conscience that I really think that they're going to pull it out because that's a lot to ask from one team. That's a lot to ask of the Bengals. Their first year in the playoffs, their first playoff win in 31 years. I mean, but it would be very interesting to see if they can pull it off. I'll say that. It would be very interesting to see if they could find a way to, hold that down. But all right, on to the next thing, because yeah, I'm kind of off the like the Raiders losing kind of just made me just sucked all the joy out the playoffs for me. I mean, I knew it was gonna happen, unfortunately, but something that like kind of just really annoys me and pisses me off. So the Texans interviewed Josh McCown. Now, ironically enough, he's been coaching his son's high school team. The dude got a head coaching interview before they hired David Culley last year. He gets interviewed again. He has no head coaching experience at college or in the NFL. He was a journeyman his whole career. This is like the literal definition of what we talk about when we say white people getting every opportunity despite not ever being qualified. In a sport where most of the greatest players in the sport are all black, but most of the coaches aren't. But what does that say? Like the playoffs, yeah, it's the same. Think about it. The Buccaneers have all these black coordinators. How many of them are really just getting interviewed, and the teams have no intention of actually hiring them as head coach? What black coordinator do you honestly think is getting a job? Brian Flores might get another job, should get another job, because he look at what he did in Miami with Tua and that bum ass offense. Defense was top notch, but if you look at what that offense did and how it underwhelmed, like what are you supposed to do with that? but somehow Josh McCown is getting a head coaching offer. Like, that personally just doesn't really sit right with me at all. But again, I'm never surprised when it comes to racism in the NFL. I remember when I talked to Hugh Jackson at the NFL Bowl a couple years ago, and I asked him, like, are you considering all levels of coaching at this point? Like, you've been in the NFL, you've been in college. Would you consider going back, or is it just like, how many black coaches have to just be content with knowing they may never get another shot in the NFL again? So they go back to college. Not that it's a bad thing, nothing wrong with that. But how many great black assistants are stuck in college knowing, like, look, I'm gonna have to play the assistant game for 10 years when there are dudes getting brought up out of nowhere. I just it's really shitty, man. Like, it's like the fact that this dude is even getting offers is disrespectful to me personally. Like, I don't see how you can sit up here and think for 1 second, hey, this dude is so qualified. We're going to give him a shot. We like his passion. But then you turn around and say, oh, well, he was too brash. Like, Flores, he was too brash. Talk to people. He was a little bit maybe too bad. Like, that passion gets turned against you somehow. And I think that's gross. It really is. Like, it makes no sense that you could sit up here and do that to somebody. To sit up here and say, you know what? Let me sit up here and say, you know what? I think even though this black coach has all this experience and the right thing to do would be to give him the job, you know what I'm not going to do? I'm going to interview him as a gag, but I'm never going to consider him. And I might hire him as a coordinator. At a certain point, you're just spitting in the face. Like the Rooney Rule, the only people who actually do it right are the Steelers. That's the one franchise you can't put your finger and say, you guys are kind of racist. The Raiders are looking kind of funny in the limelight with how they hired Gruden, knowing they didn't really bother with the whole Rooney Rule. They bypassed that. There's no way you can justify that, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens. But I can just tell you straight up, like, NFL players should come out and speak out against this situation. Like, how can you sit up here and even consider hiring Josh McCown as an NFL head coach, let alone giving him a shot as an NFL, like, it's one thing if he gets like, oh, you can be like a player's assistant. You could be a positional assistant. You can be an assistant to the position coach. No, he gets a head coaching gig. It's personally trash to me. And this shit is just whack to me. Like, I sit back and I look at all these jobs, all these coaches, all these position groups, and we're gonna be in the same place a year from now. Hey, it'd be a great candidate. This defensive coordinator who's like D'Amico Ryans was a Pro Bowler in the NFL. I wonder if he'll get the Ray Horton treatment. I wonder if he'll get the Steve Wilkes treatment. That was a joke too. Cliff Kingsbury clearly, like, if anything, I would fire Cliff Kingsbury and hire um, Brian Flores immediately if I'm the Cardinals. He'll take that defense to where it needs to go. And that offense will get cleaned up real quick. He'll cut down on the mistakes. Okay, you have something in place. You can bring Pep Ham. I think if you brought Brian Flores and Pep Hamilton to the Arizona Cardinals, that would be perfect. I just don't see though how you can really, man. It's just nastiness. Like, to me, it's just it's nasty how you can sit up here and even entertaining an interview to a guy, and with all due respect, that's weird. Okay, with all due respect, let's see. Let me read the chat room for Spreaker. I don't know. Let's see. Pete's in there. Wow, Pete. I wish I could read that because it's too far away. Why don't you jump in the StreamYard chat, Pete? Consider that one. But yeah, when it comes down to it, when it really comes down to it, the Giants, I just think, like Joe Judge, what's the difference between Joe Judge and Josh McCown, if we're really being honest? And how trash is that Bill Belichick coaching tree? If we're really going to be honest about it, I don't really see how. Touche, Pete. You're an asshole. But yeah, when it comes down to it, I don't really see how you can justify even giving these, like, anybody. I mean, literally. Okay. All right. Raiders are gonna sign. Pete, stupid. Raiders from the sign John Grudino. Okay. Or no, Juan Grudino. Dumbass. The Steelers only have four coaches. They've only had four coaches in their history, and one of them's black. And I think they've all won Super Bowls, if I'm not mistaken, or at least three. And honestly, yeah, at least Mike McCarthy has coached the team to like successful records. Yeah, he had Hall of Fame QBs, but Josh McCown hasn't been a Hall of Fame Q. I don't think he was a Hall of Famer at Sam Houston State. So I'm not going to call him a Hall of, like, he wasn't. He hasn't shown to be an elite coach at all. He's a white boy who other white boys like, so he gets the nod. You can't justify him even getting a coordinator position. If that's the case, like when you're a black coach, you got to be a Hall of Fame player. You got to have all this expertise and connections. You got to be the most stand up. If you sneeze wrong, you're a bad candidate. You just got to be Josh McCown, who was a bum ass losing QB in his career. He was not a successful starting quarterback. He was a journeyman for a reason because he wasn't good enough to be a starter. McCown's not that bad. I can feel it. If Pete, if you honestly start championing Josh McCown to be the Raiders head coach, I might have to disown you. Like, as from the Raiders fan base. And yeah, it's cool the Raiders played hard, but I mean they still sucked. They were definitely ass. I just personally want to know why, after all that time, and let me just debt this whole Harbaugh shit. I don't really get it when people think Harbaugh should be the guy. I can't really see Jim Harbaugh coming back to the NFL after being so far away. One, who's going to be the GM is going to be a GM he agrees with. Are you going to let him know right off the bat that you're the head coach or not the GM? Are you going to separate church and state? Because the last time you didn't, you got Mike Mayock and John Gruden. So really, you got John Gruden. And I'm sorry, but Mike Mayock, I couldn't really take him serious because I've seen too many clips of him saying guys who ended up being busts because they have bubble butts were going to be successful linemen in the NFL, and they weren't successful linemen at all. So if I'm the Raiders group, if you're picking somebody, you really need to pick a proven head coach. And honestly, I would rather have Brian Flores than, like, people forget Harbaugh didn't inherit an empty cupboard. Like, Vernon Davis was became who he was because of Mike Singletary, not because of Jim Harbaugh. Those are out of his mouth. Frank Gore was already Frank Gore. Crabtree was Crabtree. Honestly, I think Crabtree could have possibly reached a Devontae Adams level if he went somewhere outside of San Francisco, because he was too raw coming out of college to just be pedestrian in the league. And even when he was playing for the Raiders, like, I think if he had really gone somewhere with a QB who was going to throw him the ball a lot, he would have been nice. But he got what he got. So I mean, I don't really know what to tell him. Because I know when it comes down to it, for me, when it comes down to it for me, I just think a dude who's that far removed from the NFL, you can't really depend on him to come back and have all this success in a crowded ass division. So I don't know. Like Harbaugh, he might be an answer, but there's too many questions with the front office that you need to fix before you get a head coach. And I think that head coach, whoever it is, whether it's Flores, Eric Bieniemy, whoever it is, they're going to want some say so. And I don't see how you get around that. I don't see you get around not letting a head coach have his pick of players. All right, let's read what Pete has to say in the chat. Okay, let Lewis Riddick or Charles Davis hire their coach. Um, Carr did. I mean, yeah, Crabtree was above average, but I think had he gone somewhere else, he probably would have been a star. Why did Seth Roberts only make every third clutch catch? Didn't he go to West Alabama with Mark but Malcolm Butler? Yeah, they went to the same school. Shout out to Andre Holmes. He was in a room of COVID and walked out with nothing he couldn't catch. Uh, yeah, if he walked in a room full of COVID, he would walk out with nothing because he couldn't catch a cold. Yeah, that is true. Um, huh. Hey Pete, I'm gonna just put this link in the chat. If you feel free, you wanna call in. There. I don't know why I just didn't do that shit from the beginning. Really should have just did that. But yeah, um, the call in is there in the chat, Pete. Since somehow someone got locked out of the never mind. Just never mind. But all right. Okay. So yeah, one last thing from the NFL from Let's Talk About It, and then we'll move on. So JJ Watt. Whoo. JJ Watt, after the Cardinals choked against the Rams, he said, but in the end, it was, for me, it was embarrassing. We put up an embarrassing performance. There's really no other way to put it, really. Um, and he pretty much said it was a massive failure. They lost 34-11 to the Rams. And Watt made like a hell of a comeback after pretty much destroying his left arm, his shoulder, his labrum, tearing up ligaments in his arm. This dude managed to really like come back through all that. and played in the game just to get his ass beat. Like, that must suck. Like, that really, it sucks to suck. At that point, if you're JJ Watt and you don't know how much time you got left, does JJ Watt retire legitimately? Or does he give this one more shot? Does he play out the contract? I think he has to give it one more shot. And they really got to upgrade their offensive line. I think the receivers are fine. I mean, maybe they can get another running back. I I I think the coaching is really the issue for the Cardinals. But we'll see. We'll definitely see. But anyway, on to other things. Let me find effect. So, college football news. Holy shit. And I mean, holy shit. You know what? I'm not even going to start with the biggest news. I'm going to end with that. So USC has had like 15 transfers, right? College football news. USC has had like 15 transfers. They got 2 transfers from Colorado, a corner, I think Mekhi Blackman, and Brendan Rice, the son of Jerry Rice. Yes, Hall of Famer Jerry Rice. Brendan Rice is actually nice and can definitely make it to the NFL, but he transferred from Colorado to USC, where he's definitely going to get used way more in that offense under Lincoln Riley, because they pretty much only have Kyle Ford, who was the number one receiver when he came out of high school, but he's been injured pretty much ever since. So this is really his first year where he could possibly be fully healthy if he can stay that way. But I mean, all these light skinned receivers in California who end up being 5-star recruits end up busting out. That's just a fact. They all end up busting out. They all end up not being who they were supposed to be. Like, oh, he has NFL potential. Maybe because you went to a rich school and put up stupid numbers. But this goes to my point. There's far more busts in these affluent areas than there are in the inner city. Most of these inner city kids, they go somewhere and they actually show and prove. A lot of these kids who come from rich ass places, rich ass high schools, a lot of these Orange County kids bust out. But that's just my little thing. Like, I don't know. And then also USC has like, I think damn near almost 8 transfers from Oklahoma. Caleb Williams, I think, is deciding he's deciding between LSU and USC, which is very interesting. That's very interesting. Uh, Play for Brian Kelly, that LSU offense that definitely has more NFL ready linemen. Or go to USC and become a star. You'll make way more money in USC than you will Louisiana. I think Caleb Williams has to follow Lincoln Riley. And USC, it's time for a star black QB at USC. It's just time. All these black kids out here going to the NFL, putting up stupid numbers, ridiculous numbers, all this athletic ability, all this ability to play at a high level, and none of them are going to USC. And a lot of them are coming out of CJ Stroud came out of California, and he's at Ohio State. He's looking like a pro prospect. You got to ask yourself, like, why can't USC recruit black QBs? The last black QB they really had was Jesse Scroggins, and yeah, he was a bum. He had a strong arm and didn't make great decisions on the field or off. That's why he ended up at Elko. I forget what other school he was at, and he was at Arizona. I think he went to like 3 schools. But Jesse Scroggins totally flamed out. Last black QB that was really like a QB, not like a receiver turned QB. I mean, a QB turned receiver. He was the last one. and Scroggins was like 2010. I think me and him graduated the same year out of Lakewood. That was the last dude. So when I look at Lincoln Riley and the fact that all his coaches are under 40, that says a lot. That says that maybe that mentality that Pete Carroll had, Lincoln Riley understands it, and he's surrounding himself with young, hungry guys who can coach, who will grow with these players. Now, if USC comes out and only wins like 8 games next year, that's a total failure. Because you can't get all these 5 stars and only win 8 games, bro. Like, sorry. Arizona was trash, even though Arizona got like pretty much all Servite's best players. Like, their 4 best players all committed to Arizona, so they'll be good in a couple of years. But you look at USC, the fact that they got like close to 8 Oklahoma transfers, 2 corners, the receiver Mario Williams. Um, you know, all these Oklahoma transfers, that says something. UCLA definitely gets a lot of black QBs and at least develops them. They made Brett Hundley an NFL QB. Never forget that. I mean, as far as the OSU lineage, UCLA's lineage is definitely not better than Ohio State's lineage when it comes to QBs. Because Braxton Miller was so nice at QB, he had to move to receiver. So, uh, JT, fuck, it's a black dude, not JT Daniels. Damn it, JT Barrett. He got to the Saints training camp. JT Barrett, who's like the all-time touchdown leader in Ohio State football history. Like, Ohio State in the modern era is showing how to develop black quarterbacks. And that's by actually giving them a chance to throw the fucking ball and use their athleticism. Oh, who knew? Who knew if you wanted to show that a black QB could play, you just treat him like everybody else, like you would treat a white QB. And a lot of these white QBs end up busting out, play QB their whole life, can throw a ball 85 yards, but then as soon as some pressure comes, what happens? They hit the transfer portal or they flop out. Remember Gunnar Keel? I want y'all to go back and Google Gunnar Keel. Honestly, there wasn't really much NFL news this week. I couldn't wait to talk about college football because a lot of shit's happening. And if Pete ever decides to call in from, I don't know, a payphone or whatever, you can bleep your face out. Like, there's very few Mexican QBs. That's the weird thing. And there's Mexican dudes who play QB, but there's very few Mexican QBs that actually end up making it at a high level. I don't know who Moses Moreno is, but I can't think of like any like top tier. I mean, people could say Mark Sanchez, but nobody even wants to really claim Mark Sanchez. That's just the sad fact of it. He's like the only one. But I think more so than ever, like, you're seeing an uptick in Hawaiian QBs. Stroud is definitely better than all the Ohio State QBs combined. He's the next generation. And then you had Ohio State had so many QBs. Jack Miller transferred to Florida, which I think is perfect for him because, yeah, I mean, wait, did I say Romo? Oh yeah. Wait, shit. Was the dude at no? I don't think the dude at Colorado was Mexican. Um, shit. No, he wasn't. No, it was mostly Polynesian. Yeah. Damn. There really, there really haven't been other than Tom Flores. There's really not a lot of Mexicans who play QB. They play every other position. They just don't play QB. I don't understand why, because there's Mexican QBs at the high school and JUCO levels. Like, it sounds fucked up, but a lot of them end up playing soccer. A lot of them end up being kickers, linebackers, D linemen, a couple tight ends, some receivers, definitely some receivers, but it's usually on the line. It's usually on the line or at kicker. Michael Davis for the Chargers is a corner who's Mexican and black. Um, but like, yeah, I think it's a lot. It's really like nowadays it's black QBs, Polynesian QBs, Hawaiian, Tongan, Samoan. Like the Polynesian QBs are having somewhat of a renaissance right now. Um, but that's because I think if you look at high school football, or not high school football, but college football, it's been the way the systems have been geared to certain players has been incredibly racist for a while. Um, if you look at a lot of black QB, like Terrell Pryor never really was developed as a QB on purpose by Jim Tressel. There's no way he there's no way he shouldn't have been an NFL QB. He had the arm talent, he had the accuracy at times, but he was not trained. Yeah, P stupid. We traded Mark Sanchez and Andy Isabella for Cooper Cup. Is Andy Isabella actually Mexican, or does he just have a Latin last name? Yeah, Cooper Cup. Nah, man, he got Cooper Cup got the Jake Paul facials going on. He can't be Mexican. But I also have to understand how he eats his Mexican food because he went to what, Eastern Illinois or Eastern Washington. So I gotta know, like, I gotta ask him a couple questions culturally to see where on the Mexican adjacent hierarchy he falls. Because if he thinks like Mexican food outside of California is fire, I have some issues. Those are some red flags. Because I had nachos in Boston and they were fucking terrible. Like they were so I had nachos when I went to Boston for a Red Sox game, and the nachos were so goddamn terrible. I almost went in the kitchen and cooked the shit myself. Said, bro, this is how you fucking do it. Could you put some more lime in this bitch? Like, are you afraid to use spicy seasonings? I kind of want these nachos to burn my mouth a little bit. I don't want to be safe when I'm eating these nachos. Why are you using pizza cheese for nachos instead of real fucking cheese? Melt this goddamn cheese and then you pour it over, man. Whatever. But anyway, as far as college football goes, yeah. Let me get back to it. So USC has a shit ton of transfers from Oklahoma. Oklahoma players who stayed at Oklahoma are talking shit about those guys who transferred. But hey, how you hating from outside the club and you can't even get in? Stetson Bennett, QB for Georgia, is going back to Georgia for his 6th year. So we'll see how that goes. I don't really know if it's going to go well. JT Daniels decided to transfer. Again, the same way I don't see many Polynesian announcers. Even though I know there are they're Hawaiian and Samoan and Tongan journalists. I don't see any of them calling football games. I don't really see a lot of Mexican coordinators. They usually get stuck being D coordinators or position coaches. So that's another aspect of it too. That there's a couple things where you look and see like why this position has so many cats who make it to the league, but none of them end up being coaches at a high level. Especially in Vegas. If you got a Mexican QB in Vegas, Kyler's part Korean. And he's definitely black. Like, sorry, he got that athleticism from his dad. And he played baseball. Like, so you can't, yeah, it's weird, man. Like, and these athletes exist. They don't exist. That's the lie that they tell you. These kind of explosive athletes, there's a defensive end right now somewhere running a 4.340, but he's gonna switch and play another position. Hell, Darius Leonard played receiver in high school. What is he now? So the athletes exist. It all really depends on where you go, where you end up. Now, another place that has actually had Latino QBs, they've had almost every kind of QB. Hawaii. So Todd Graham resigned. Oh yeah, he's on a list of piece of shit coaches and human beings. You can't send Tony Gonzalez to the Asians, bro. You can't do that, Pete. And Tony Gonzalez is black and Latino, so there's no way the Asians are going to take him. They don't want somebody who's black and Mexican. They kind of want like you. They want to claim the part of you that's them, and they don't really care about the other side. So, yeah. See, never mind. Polys and fall. Wait. Fam, I don't even know what the hell that is. And I made my picks earlier in the show, but I'll get to them and take a tangent. But yeah. So yeah, Hawaii. Pete, I don't understand how you don't know how to type because that shit makes no sense. I just see Asian football players and polys. I don't know what that sentence says. Oh, okay, I heard what you said, but I'll get to the picks real quick, and then we'll get back to college. So I'm taking the Packers and the Rams to be an NFC title game, and the Bengals are my dark horse. The Bengals are my dark horse, and honestly, if not the Bengals, it's probably end up being like Chiefs and Bills again. But the Chiefs are a hard. If the Bengals upset the Chiefs, they could easily make the Super Bowl. I'll just tell you that. But the Bengals are my personal pick to make it to the AFC title game. I don't really give a shit. I don't give a shit about the Bills or the Titans. Jimmy Chang was Asian, but I guess you can count him as he's probably an OC somewhere. But yeah, Niners are the most dangerous teams left in the playoffs. But I think the Packers they're healthier, and I trust Aaron Rodgers over. Yeah, you have Deebo Samuels, but the Packers have enough on defense to stop Deebo Samuels. Eric Stokes is actually not looking like a bust. Whitney Merciless is coming back. Jarius Alexander's coming back. Bengals got Trey Hendrickson. He's enough. They can get pressure. They don't necessarily have to have the pass rush. They just got to shoot it out. I mean, they beat the Chiefs in the regular season, so that would indicate that they can beat them again in the playoffs, and they can play in cold weather. So it's not an issue. And Joey Burrow, there's nobody on the Chiefs defense who can guard Jamar Chase. We saw that when he went for like 267 receiving yards, and Patrick Mahomes only had 225. Think about that. Jamar Chase had more receiving yards by himself than Patrick Mahomes did the whole game. And that's the Raiders. If you get pressure against the Raiders, that doesn't count. That's like breathing. Everybody can get pressure against the Raiders. And the Titans again. The Bengals should definitely beat the Titans. That's why I have to go Bengals, Chiefs, and I think the Bengals are on a hot streak that they can make it to the Super Bowl. I'm rooting for the Bengals to make it. There, I said it. I can't believe I just said that shit, but I said it. I trust Joe Burrow. He's too fucking cool. He's smooth with his delivery, and the dude he plays like a 10-year veteran. And he has really 3 receivers who could be number ones. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. I ain't fucking saying that. But if the Bengals end up in the Super Bowl, I'm going to look at all y'all like I fucking told you so. I don't think the Titans defense is, I'm sorry, I just don't respect the Titans defense like that. Their run defense, okay. And also, again, yeah, the Cowboys fucked up, but I mean, yeah, it's the Bengals' second playoff game in my lifetime, and I'm only 29. But again, matchup styles make fights. There's no way. Yeah, the Titans defense looks good, but of course it looks good when you play Houston and Jacksonville 4 times a year. So I take those games out. Didn't they lose? Didn't the Titans lose to Jacksonville or Houston won it earlier in the season? Yeah, I'm not taking them to make it to the Super Bowl. I can't. If you lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Houston Texans, I'm not picking you to make it. I'm just not. Titans blowing out the Bengals 33-13. That's wild. Um, a Niners Rams NFC title game would be very interesting. There'd be a lot of fights though. A lot of fights. And if the Rams lose, oh God. Whew. There's all the pressure in the world is on the Rams and Aaron Rodgers right now. Because if the Packers lose, he's gone. They're blowing that team up. And if the Rams lose, they're going to be trading Matthew Stafford's ass for Russell Wilson. I wouldn't go against Tom Brady, but honestly, injuries are piling up on that offense. And if you lose Mike Evans, they're fucked. They have no one left. The ghost of Delta O'Neal and Pac-Man. I mean, Pac-Man did play for the Titans, and he was a Pro Bowler with the Titans. The Bucs defense is always going to be the Bucs defense, but it's just like the Titans defense. Yeah, it's good, but I mean, they're not infallible. And the Eagles were not a good matchup. I mean, the Eagles are going to kill them in the draft. They got 3 first-round picks. But, again, who do they have at receiver outside of Mike Evans and Gronk? Unless O.J. Howard has a game of his life, unless Cameron Braid has a game of his life, unless Jensen can actually play and Wirfs isn't injured because they both got hurt, how do you even sit up here and justify? I can't pick the Bucs. I'd have to go Packers because the Packers lost their arguably the best corner in the league, cover corner, in Jair Alexander. I would argue you could take Jair Alexander over Jalen Ramsey and not miss a beat. But that's just me. Like, Brady's great. And yeah, he has white receivers, black receivers. Hell, we could play receiver for Tom Brady and he would fucking make it work. But guess what? Injuries, when he tore his ACL and missed the whole season and the Patriots went 11-5 and missed the playoffs, guess what? Injuries happen. And just because the Bucs have all these injuries doesn't make them infallible. So I think that Rams defense, I think the Rams do enough to skate by. So those are my picks. I got Packers, Rams. Not even my favorite team is the Raiders. It's not even emotion. I think the Packers, like, this is their year to make it. They're getting all their best players back at the right time. They're getting Bakhtiari back. They're getting Jair Alexander back. They're getting Whitney Merciless back. He's just the second. He's on the other side of Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, and Rashawn Gary. That's 4 pass rushers right there. This is looking like the Packers' year. They may blow it up. They may treat this like the last dance, but it's looking like the Packers' year. Oh, yeah, and they have A.J. Dillon, who's running through people's faces, and Aaron Jones. They finally have perfect balance for that offense. I would say the Cowboys are the most overrated team in NFL history because of their playoff experience. Because they still talk about the triplets as if that shit didn't happen when I was like 1 year old. Hey, man, if the Packers choke this time, I'll give you that. But if they don't choke, then y'all got to be worried. If they make it to the NFC title game, I don't know. But it's I think the Bengals are the dark horse to make it to the AFC title game because they're not afraid of anybody. Like, if you can't stop them from scoring, why should I? Like, their defense can give up 1,000 yards, but if they put more points on the board than you, and I would take Burrow over Tannehill every day of the week. And if you look at the the Bengals offense compared to the Bills offense, they can actually run the ball and not just depend on Josh Allen. Hey man, a broken clock is right at least once a day. So hypothetically speaking, the Bengals could make a run. Cause why not them? They don't know any better. You can't say they choked. They don't know any better yet. They're just out here just playing and winning, and nobody has been able to shut down Jamar Chase all year. Tyler Boyd could go for 1,000 yards. He almost did. They almost had 3 1,000-yard receivers. But I mean, shit, I gotta have a pick that you don't see coming. I can't just be basic and just pick the same 4 teams. Nah, I think either the Bills or the Titans is gonna choke. Either the Bills or the Titans are gonna choke. And then I think the Bengals find a way to do it. I think out of the four teams I got left, and I'm going on wax, and then I'm gonna get to the most controversial story of the night. I got Packers Rams NFC title game, and then I got Bengals Chiefs AFC title game. Put me on wax for that. Hold me to task for that. Yo, if the Raiders would sign Tua, I'm mad you spelled his name Toe. That's fucked up. All right, Titans, Chiefs, Niners, Bucks. That might realistically be it, but are you really going to want to watch another Tom Brady Super Bowl? I don't. I definitely don't. But yeah, so Todd Graham got fired as the head coach at Hawaii. Or he didn't get fired, he pretty much quit because like he was verbally abusing all his players. Like calling them lazy, stupid, retarded pieces of shit. Everything you could think of. And a bunch of guys transferred off Hawaii. Now a lot of the players that are staying, they're pretty much putting up social media posts saying, I'm coming back for one more year. I believe in Hawaii. Honestly, if you're a college head coach who's really good or an assistant who's really good, I would run to Hawaii if I couldn't get anything else. Because, bro, if you win in Hawaii, they love you forever. Look, they were talking about bringing June Jones back to Hawaii. Holy shit, man. But yeah. Lastly, the NCAA is you know what? I'm gonna save this one. I'm gonna just yeah. I mean, again, y'all in the chat, I'm still saying I know the Niners are built to beat the Packers. Niners are built to beat everybody. But I just can't root against the Packers with what they got at home. At home. You going to be the number 1 seed and then lose at home to the Niners? Come on. Jimmy G's going to play better than Elijah Mitchell's going to go for over 100 yards. Devontae. It don't even matter who's at tight end. Mercedes Lewis is like in the 17th year, still in the league, still balling. Devontae's too nice. One of those receivers for the Packers is going to make a play. A.J. Dillon is running the ball. Hell, if Aaron Jones has to go play receiver, he'll do it. Like, Matt LaFleur has proven he's not going to fuck up until at least the NFC title game. But the Niners going to toe stomp their way to victory? I wouldn't put it past them. They would Nancy Kerrigan his toe at the bottom of every pile. Somebody just Albert Hainsworth stomp Aaron Rodgers' foot. But now for a serious topic. And this is really the only one for Taker Tangent. Because, well, it's the biggest news that came out this week, honestly. So the NCAA is changing their transgender athlete participation rules amid controversy from, you guessed it, women's groups, women's athletic departments. There's a story at the University of Pennsylvania or University of Penn. Swimmer Leah Thompson, transgender woman. I forget when she was a man. I forget his first name. but she goes by Leah Thompson now, and she was a male swimmer for 3 years on varsity, 3 years at Penn, a swimmer, transitioned into a woman, and now she is breaking all the female NCAA swimming records. Yes, when she was a man. Um, you can. It's on Bleacher Report, Fox News, everywhere. Like you can look up the story. She's breaking all the records that like by a lot. Like there are women out there saying that like we want to protect this the sanctity of like the records that Katie Ledecky and Missy Franklin have set as swimmers in college. They're like the greatest female swimmers of all time in college, and they made it to the. I know Katie Ledecky made it to the Olympics before she was even in college. So Missy Franklin was killing it. She had her run, and Leah Thompson almost essentially is about to break a bunch of female swimming records. Like she's destroying records. Her teammates don't really respect the way she went about it. They're like happy that she's doing what she thinks is best for her, but they really don't respect it because they feel like she didn't do it organically because she used to be a man and now she's a woman and she's breaking all the records. The NCAA is like, we're changing the rules. So if you want to compete, if you want transgender athletes to compete in your sports, we're going to leave it to the sports. That's what they're saying. That's what the ruling is. You ain't got to get legal on the phone. I'm just reporting what the story says and what the talking points have been forever. That scientists have come out and said that men just naturally have more testosterone than women. So even transgender women who take estrogen naturally have they say 300, at least 300 times more testosterone than biologically born women. So pretty much if you have ovaries, biologically you're a woman. Ovaries versus, a prostate. So the problem is, and the debates are, should transgender women, who were men, who were born men, and now identify as women, should they be allowed to compete against women who were biologically born women? A lot of people say, it's wrong. A lot of other people are saying, well, I mean, in some cases, like athletes in particular, pizza, I don't understand why we even have records anymore at this point. I mean, I would just say it. It's not really controversial because I look at it like this. Yeah, it's crazy. It's up for discussion. I mean, there are athletes. There's like case history in Texas. We covered it a couple of years ago. A wrestler who was transgender. Mind you, this was like, I think a 16-year-old. At the time, it was like a young lady who was a boy at as early as like 14 transitioned into being a girl and was beating the dog shit out of girls in high school in wrestling. Like she won like 4 straight state titles, just beating the dog shit out of girls who don't have nowhere near the testosterone. Like, and we're seeing a lot of cases where it's like young men who transitioned into becoming females who were bottom half athletes against other men. They weren't even the best against men. They were like bottom of the rung. No competitive. There's even there's a girl, a young lady in Texas who transitioned into becoming a girl. She couldn't qualify in high school. She couldn't even make it to CIF. Became, transitioned into a girl and dominated all the state track records. So you got to ask yourself, when it comes to this, women, do you really want equality in this regard of Well, because if a woman became a man and wanted to compete against dudes, like men don't have a problem with that because men are like, you earn what you kill. We're not going to give you any extra contingencies or breaks. You come in and you earn what you kill. But with women, it's different because, I mean, in UFC, you've seen it where it was a guy who became. I mean, they didn't go back and take Bruce Jenner's medals. Yeah, but Bruce Jenner won all those medals while he was a man. He didn't become a woman or Caitlyn until years after he retired. But I don't think he should have won Woman of the Year. That was disrespectful. I mean, he killed a mother of three, and we just all forget about that. Around the same time, he won Woman of the Year. He was responsible for the death of a mother of three because he wanted to play games with TMZ on the freeway. But we forget that. But I guess when you're linked up with the Kardashians, you can get away with whatever you want. Bruce Jenner got hexed by some witches. I mean, yeah, like that's one thing you could say. But when it comes down to it, and honestly, the reason why I chose this topic, honestly, because it could be a turnover or a touchdown. Like, where does it stop? I mean, that's the thing. Like, why can't we just have non-binary athletic games? Because then Title IX comes into play. I don't think women thought that Title IX would be used against them via transgender people now. Because now transgender people can literally use Title IX against women and saying you're being discriminatory, not men. Because men, if you're going to compete against a man, whether you suck or you're good, we don't care. We'll let you compete. But competing against women, that's a different story. Let's say in the future, I have a daughter, and my daughter, who was born a girl with ovaries, does not have the testosterone of a man, isn't getting gender reassignment surgery, is out there and wrestling some 6'7" motherfucker, I'm gonna go out there and whoop his ass. No. You have spent at least 17 to 18 years of your life gathering male testosterone in your body, and you transition to becoming a woman. Do you think, let's say, the 2 years you took to transition into becoming a woman overrides the 15 to 16 years of you've had of natural testosterone and muscle that's much greater than that any woman can essentially have? I don't know, Pete. I don't know if they are going to revise Title IX because now you have to, because women are standing up and saying we don't like this shit. We don't want transgender women in our sports because they're not really women biologically. And if you're going to say that, then that means everything you were saying to pigeonhole women into athletics, it was a bad faith argument. Because if you think women are equal to men, but then men transitioning and becoming women and then dominating women at the same sport, well, which is it? Are we being fair, or do you just want superiority in a field that works for you? You want an advantage for you, but then we say, okay. I mean, the Paralympic Games even has transgender athletes. Hell, at the Olympics, the Winter Olympics, this white dude who transitioned to becoming a woman, he was using steroids. But again, that's another wrinkle to this because the IOC, especially with these Olympic sports like swimming, the IOC determines now. They're going to make the rules for these schools. So it's not like the school the school or the league that you're in college makes the rules. No, now you're getting judged by IOC rules, and we know the IOC is full of shit and has a lot of murky area there. So now, let's say you're a transgender athlete in swimming and you're getting judged by the IOC in college, and they pop you for a drug test, and now you can never race again. Because they say, oh, your testosterone, because they said this about two actual natural born women, two black women during the Olympics, the Summer Olympics. They said, "Oh, your testosterone levels are too high," but then they let a transgender athlete compete, a weightlifter. He actually was terrible as a man, and then he transitioned to becoming a woman, and I think he got, a gold or a silver in weightlifting. So you got to ask yourself, like, do you just make a transgender league? Do you just give people who are transgender their own leagues and then they can compete against each other? Is that sexist? Like, where's the line now? Because if women want to stay, like, if women who are biologically women are pounding the table to say we want transgender athletes out of our sport, where does it stop? And if you're going to make a transgender league, who is the money that's already coming out of Title IX coming from men's sports? Because men's sports are the ones that make the money. Women's sports don't make money across the board like that. Football, basketball, maybe baseball, but football and basketball make all the money. I know UConn is winning all these championships, but UConn football still. Sorry. Even UConn football. Like, so you have to ask yourself, even if you have a testosterone test, I mean, medically, like, when do you cross the line of being discriminatory, and when do you cross the line of being too intrusive? When do you cross people's, HIPAA, FERPA, all those rights? Because something's going to interject to where you're going to have really personal information publicized about a person because of their sexual identity or whatever their gender is, whatever their pronoun is. And it's going to get to the point where, okay, is it really about you playing the sport, or do you just want an advantage because you can't compete against the gender you were born as? You can't cut it as a man. So for 3 years you were a male, but then you transitioned into a woman your last year of college. That I don't know how honorable that is. Her own teammates don't respect her for how she's doing it. They don't like that she's there. They kind of just ostracize her, and they don't even like being around her. It's a fucked up story. It came on TV too. Like, you have a like, at what level of testosterone do you cut it off to say, well, again, separate but equal? But again, I almost think it was easier to just separate men's and women's sports and just have it subsidized. But now that when you throw in the fact that people are transitioning, athletes are transitioning, and they were failed athletes as men, and they're transitioning to go up against women, because you don't see any transgender like men out here dominating in sports. Where are they? Women transition to become men and all of a sudden whooping everybody's ass. That's not happening anywhere. That's not happening in UFC and boxing. But when it's always the other way. It's always a man transitioning to a woman and then beating the shit out of women. One chick was like an army ranger, like it was a dude who was a fucking special forces army ranger, like Green Beret, whatever the fuck. He was in UFC, and he's out here fighting chicks. He already was trained to kill you as a man, and he transitioned into a woman, and now he's pummeling chicks in the face. He's Kimbo slicing people's eyes out. And then for anybody who thinks, oh, this conversation is sexist, like men are having it about, no, we're not having about women. Women are coming out and saying this is bullshit. So I'm just saying, as men, we don't like to move the goalpost. You either made it or you missed it. You either passed or you failed. But now that women are in a spot to where they have to be like, whoa, you're infringing on our rights and this is too far. I just want to know, like, are we going to get to a point in sports where it's just all participation trophy? Better yet, does a transgender athlete get NIL money from, let's say, the drug company that they're using to help their transition? Is that a conflict of interest? Like, how deep and dark does this wormhole go? I'm just curious. Hey man, you can't cancel me. I'm a black man in America. Sorry, you tried that already. I was canceled at my mother's ultrasound. Pete, you're a Mexican male in America. They kind of wanted to cancel you too. Like, it's a fair. These are fair questions that we're asking. I mean, me personally, I mean, like JG said, which you don't make me shit. I'm not playing sports. I'm washed, so I don't. At the end of the day, it don't affect my life. But if I have children, and there are people out there who have children watching their kids, their daughters, get the shit pummeled out of them in high school by a 16-year-old um, transgender girl who was a boy a year ago and can't whoop any boys but transitioned to become a woman, like we have to ask the hard questions, like, so because men can't really concede much more in the sports world as far as this goes, because nobody has a nobody has a problem with, realistically, people. It went from like, okay, in certain sports like football, basketball, you can't have gay teammates when we all know we had gay teammates. It just wasn't acceptable. Now no one cares. Now it's all open. There are multiple D1 athletes who are openly gay. And guess what? Once they came out, it stopped being a fucking story. Nobody cares anymore. They're out living their best life, being, whatever they want to be. But this is different. It's different if you coming out saying, I'm gay, I'm pansexual, whatever. Fine. Do you live your life? Anybody who judges you, that's because they got some weird hangups. Because whoever you with, that don't fuck with my life and well being. But when you factor in, oh, I'm gonna take drugs and transition to becoming a woman, but I still have way too much testosterone to really be competing against women, and any testosterone test you give me would actually let me sue you because you're discriminating against me on a scientific basis of something I can't control. Like, the NCAA, like they opened up. The NCAA said, "Fuck it, it's not our problem. Y'all handle it on a state's basis." And I'm telling you, they're trying to remove any legal liability off themselves. But by them doing this, it's just gonna cause more problems. It's like fucking when the multiverse broke on Loki and Spider-Man. Like, this is just more and more, like, people aren't gonna feel relieved by this ruling, because not only is this the swimmer Penn gonna feel dejected if if all her records get taken and she's not allowed to swim, or if she has to compete against men but she identifies as a woman and then she sues off that basis. Do you just disband sports? Is sports just like, is it just like rec fucking, does it go the way of what's that? Does sports just go the way of tetherball now? Like, yeah, people play tetherball, but once you hit like high school, you really shouldn't be playing tetherball. Like, it's frowned upon almost. Like, I'm just curious with these rulings and the fact that people are going to have to make choices, and especially women as a whole are going to have, they're already standing up and making the choice that they don't want, they're already saying it, they don't want transgender athletes in women's sports. Well, where are they going to go? Because they already compete against men, but if they identify as women, then you have to let them in, right? So we're going to keep an update on this. Again, we didn't start this shit. We're just having a conversation because we want to know, in the grand scheme of sports, where does this fit? Like, there are girls who play football. Y'all know that, right? They already exist. There are girls in LA at local high schools. There's a girl in Santa Monica who played football. There's a girl at Bishop Montgomery when I was in high school who played QB, but they really used her as a gimmick, and she was actually nice, but they didn't, and they really couldn't protect her. The whole line was trash. Like, they were trash. So nothing you can really do. There are girls who play football. There are girls who play rugby. Like, playing a sport isn't the issue. It's the politics and the red tape of said issue. And I'm going to just sit back and see how this shit plays out, because, man, they got a mess on their hands. And if you don't if you don't make the right call as far as the NCAA and working with the governing bodies like the IOC, like all these Olympic sports, like do they just get shut down? Because I mean, the Olympic sports don't pay for themselves. Football and basketball do. So like it'll be interesting to see what Title IX does. Like, do they add an extra, proclamation like, hey, transgender athletes are now the third rung of college sports. Do you come up with a whole transgender athlete network? Like, what does that look like? What percentage of the population are they? Like, so that'll be interesting. I'm not even going to pretend like I know the answers to that question. I'm actually more curious as to see who has the answers and how they come up with them. Because again, I don't really. It's not my fight, but it's a fight that's going to happen in the street in front of all of us, and history will look back, and we can't pretend like we didn't see all this go down in real time. So that's really it. Um, yeah, it really wasn't shit else to talk about this week. This was actually a really slow week outside of the playoffs, surprisingly. I'm gonna just get straight to the rants. I'm excited about the NFLPA Bowl next week. Practices and everything that'll be coming up. It's gonna be a fun time. I sat back today and realized that I'll be 30 in exactly a month from today. Actually, 20, like a month from yesterday, I'll be 30. February 19th, I will be 30. My older sister in 6 days will be 33. Time flies, man. It's funny, like you live your life like like your childhood. One day you walk outside and your childhood's over, but nobody told you and you didn't realize it until afterwards. And I was sitting back like late last night trying to get my nephew to go to sleep, and I'm just like listening to my mom talk about how fun shit was in the 80s and how things were just open and safe. Like you could be reckless and shit was safe because rule number one of going to a concert is protect each other. We're all here to have fun, protect each other. And then you look nowadays, it's like not that it's every man for themselves, but it's just like it's a whole shit show. And you realize, damn, I realized, damn, I'm almost 30. I've lived through technically 3 different decades. Um, and we're never gonna get those times back. We're never gonna go back to that time. Like when 24 hours felt like 24 hours, not like 8. And I'm thankful I grew up in a time before social media blew up, before all this shit became just in your face every second of every day. I am glad we have Uber and ride sharing and shit like that. I am pissed that we don't have universal healthcare and universal internet because and universal transit. Like I should never have to pay to get on the bus, the train, for internet or healthcare. It should just come out of my fucking taxes. Like how Social Security does, even though realistically, by the time if you're in your 30s, by the time you hit 60, you probably won't even get to retire. So you probably won't even see your Social Security. But they're just taking money from the next generation. And it's kind of fucked up. Like they had the the Voting Rights Act that's going through where they're trying to do what they do with that. And it's like at one point we lived in a time where you could respect somebody's sensibilities as like a human. And we really were like, okay, let's really focus on the next generation and make things good for them. It feels like we've hit a stagnation point where it's really like fuck them kids. Like I feel bad for kids who are out there going through high school right now. learning, like going through Zoom, not learning anything. They're not really interacting in the world that we grew up in, us millennials. They're growing up in a world more detached, but more in your face than ever. They don't know how to talk to people one on one. They don't get to see people one on one. Because, I mean, outside of the pandemic, even before the pandemic, people like grow further and further apart. But like, I can turn on YouTube and look at like videos from the 80s and shit and talk to my mom about what life was like back then. And she's told me shit that I'm just like, I don't believe you. That didn't fucking happen. You're lying. She's like, why would I need to lie? It happened. It happened actually every day. It was a common thing. I was like, that can never happen now. So the fact that I'm about to be 30, I'm just blessed and I'm thankful. I know people who didn't get to make it this far. I got former high school teammates murdered. Rest in peace, teamer. I got former, teammates, classmates who died in accidents and shit. All types of stuff. So even though there's a bunch of bullshit going on, just be thankful, man, for what you have. Hold on to what you got. Always keep striving for a little bit more, but don't look at whatever you got in your hands and say, "Oh, this is trash. This is worthless." Because I mean, you could always have nothing. You could always have nothing, and that would suck. So I'm gonna get the fuck up out of here because I've already rambled for too long. Anyway, 1 1777 memorabilia and Pete. Salute to y'all in the chat. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't really see shit. But yeah, y'all picks were interesting. And yeah, I'm actually gonna look up the recruiting services to see if I can actually find like a Mexican QB who's been in the Elite Eight, because that shit really boggles my mind now. But anyway, I'm out. Salute y'all. Take it easy. So yeah.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Peace. Hey, peace out, StreamYard. Thank y'all for listening. Hopefully, from the conversations we had tonight, it's just something to think about. I'm not saying take what I said to the head and like use this holy writ, but ask yourself like, how are some of these topics manifesting in your life if you even care about that shit? So yeah, peace out. Later. Shout out to all our affiliates, X Quad. Shout out to Good News Radio, Good News Sports. Salute.